Do you have a goal of transitioning from a seat into a squat without using your hands? But when you try, does it end up looking something more like this? And you just feel like you just can't get there? Well, I have 3 tips to share with you today for how to move closer toward transitioning from a seat to a squat with no hands. But the first thing I'd like to point out is that body proportions do play a role here. So the length of your femur and your tibia or your shin bone, like the length of those relative to one another, as well as the length of your torso, all of those play a role in naturally giving someone potentially an advantage or a disadvantage in this transition. And body proportions is something that we can't change about our body. So just know that those do play a role. But with that said, that doesn't mean that we can't still practice the movement and improve or optimize the movement in our own body regardless. So my first tip for how to move toward this transition is a positional tip. So it can be really helpful when we're doing this to really think of bringing the feet together and the knees wide. So that's kind of important. That gives you the space to move through. And then as you are making the transition, arms forward helps. And we think of leaning forward so that we just shift our weight like from our seat, from our sitting bones into our feet in the squat. So it's this positional, it's feet together, knees wide so we can reach through and then really reach forward. So setting up, getting the position set up well is my first tip. And then my second tip is if you get all that set up and it's still tough for you, then try working from the top down. So that would be in the form of elevating your hips up on something. A yoga block is perfect, or a couple yoga blocks. And then you start higher and then we go from higher. That tends to give us an advantage. So once you practice here and that works out, then you can lower the block onto a lower height. And then you start lowering gradually down until you get all the way down to making this movement happen from the floor. So that is tip number 2. And tip number 3 is that it can often help to hold something with a little weight to it out in front of you to help make the transition. So I have a weight here. And this, like if I have a hard time doing this with just body weight, sometimes just the addition of the weight acts as a little counterbalance and it can really help to pull us forward. So we could practice with a certain weight. And then once that feels smooth, reduce the amount of the weight and then practice with that lighter weight and then continually lighter and lighter until we are down to body weight. So those are my 3 tips for how to improve your ability to transition from a seat to a squat without using your hands. If you appreciated this content, subscribe to my channel so you can stay up to date on all of the tips that I share.